Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Midnight Affairs Tales. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know what part of the world you are watching from right now. Let us know in the comments. Now let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The call came early, just as Tom Walker stood in his kitchen, grimacing at the bitter taste of overcooked coffee. The morning ritual had been interrupted by a distracted mind, which had led to the burnt brew sitting before him. At 45, his weathered features spoke of years spent commanding construction sites under the hot sun with unwavering authority. His dark hair showed touches of gray at the temples, but his blue eyes still retained their razor-sharp focus, a remnant of his military days that served him well in civilian life. Tom reached for the newspaper, appreciating the quiet moments before heading out to the construction site. The modest kitchen reflected his pragmatic approach to life, functional, orderly, maintained with the same discipline he brought to everything. The salary of a construction foreman wasn't lavish, but it provided a comfortable life for his family, his wife, Eleanor, and their 21-year-old daughter, Ava. The harsh ring of his phone shattered the silence. Tom's hand froze mid-reach for his coffee cup. Unknown number. Mr. Walker, a clinical voice came through. This is Memorial Hospital. Your daughter, Ava, has been brought to our emergency department. Tom's fingers tightened around the phone. What happened? We can't discuss details over the phone, but you should come immediately. I'm on my way. His voice remained steady, but his pulse quickened. Tom grabbed his jacket, leaving his half-eaten breakfast forgotten on the counter. His boots thundered against the kitchen floor as he rushed out. The old pickup truck's engine roared to life, and he pulled out of the driveway with controlled urgency. The fluorescent lights of the hospital's emergency department assaulted his eyes as he strode through the doors. A nurse pointed him toward a curtained bay, and Tom's military training kicked in as he assessed the scene. Ava lay on the bed, her face marked with ugly bruises. Her right eye was swollen, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her hands trembled as she clutched the thin hospital blanket. "Daddy," her voice cracked. Tom moved to her side, taking her hand in his. His touch was gentle, contrasting with the fury building inside him. "I'm here, baby girl. Tell me what happened." Ava's words came out between sobs. "I came home early from Sarah's. I heard noises upstairs." She squeezed her eyes shut. "In your bedroom," Tom's jaw clenched. "Go on." "Mom was there, with Uncle Rick." Ava's voice dropped to a whisper. They were together. The words hit Tom like physical blows. Eleanor, his wife of 23 years, with Rick, her brother. The smooth-talking businessman who always seemed to have an angle. Tom had always sensed something dirty beneath Rick's polished exterior. "I screamed," Ava continued, her body shaking with renewed sobs. "Then these two men came out of nowhere, Rick's bodyguards. They grabbed me and threw me down the stairs." Tom stood, his movements controlled and deliberate. "Did you see a doctor yet?" "They're waiting for x-rays." "Good." He kissed her forehead. "I'll be back soon." "Dad," Ava grabbed his wrist. "Don't do anything stupid." Tom's lips curved into a cold smile. "Nothing stupid, just necessary." He found the nurse's station and approached the desk with measured steps. "My daughter, Ava Walker. I need to know her injuries." The nurse tapped at her computer. "Contusions, possible concussion. Pending x-rays for her ribs and right wrist." The doctor ordered pain medication. "I want all the documentation." Tom's voice was steady but firm. "Photos of her injuries. Medical reports. Everything." "Sir, that's not standard procedure." "Make it happen." His voice dropped lower. "Those bastards aren't getting away with this." The nurse studied his face, then nodded slowly. "I'll see what I can do." Tom's mind raced as he processed the situation. Eleanor, his wife, the woman he had built a life with, was betraying him with her own brother, Rick. The man who showed up at family dinners with expensive wines and condescending smiles. The man Tom had always suspected was dirty beneath his polished exterior. But bodyguards? That suggested something bigger than just a simple affair. Rick's business dealings had always seemed suspicious. Too much money, too few explanations. And now he had muscle. Men willing to assault a young woman. Tom pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "It's Walker. Remember that favor you owe me from Kandahar?" He paused, listening. "I'm calling it in. I need everything you can find on Richard Thorne's business operations, and I mean everything." He ended the call and stared at the emergency room doors. 23 years of marriage, countless family dinners, shared holidays, all a lie. The betrayal cut deep, but it wasn't the affair that enraged Tom. It was Ava, his daughter, his child. They had crossed a line no father could let stand. Tom walked back to Ava's bedside. She had fallen into a restless sleep, the pain medication taking effect. He watched her bruised face, remembering the day she was born. He'd sworn then to protect her from anything that might harm her. He'd failed today, but he wouldn't fail again. A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Walker, we need to discuss your daughter's injuries." Tom's eyes never left Ava's face. "I need to make one more call." He stepped away from the bed and dialed another number. The line rang twice before a voice answered. "Detective Ramirez, this is Thomas Walker. We need to talk about Richard Thorne and his associates." He listened briefly, then added, "No, not at the station. Somewhere private. This goes deeper than you know." Tom ended the call and returned to Ava's bedside. The doctor waited patiently. "Tell me everything," Tom said, his voice calm but seething with quiet fury. "I want to know exactly what they did to my little girl." As the doctor detailed Ava's injuries, Tom's rage crystallized into something cold and hard. Eleanor, Rick, the bodyguards, they thought they were untouchable. They thought they could hurt his family and laugh about it over his whiskey. They were wrong. They had no idea what kind of man they were dealing with, but they would learn. Tom would make sure of that. He settled into the chair beside Ava's bed, his mind already mapping out what needed to be done. First, secure Ava. Then, gather intelligence. And after that, they would understand the mistake they'd made. The mistake of betraying Thomas Walker. The mistake of hurting his daughter. The mistake of thinking they could get away with it. Chapter 2. The confrontation. Tom's truck crawled down his street, his trained eyes scanning for unfamiliar vehicles. Two black SUVs with tinted windows sat in his driveway, professional muscle trying to look inconspicuous in a working-class neighborhood. Amateur hour. He parked a block away and approached on foot. Years of military training took over. The front door hung open, spilling light onto the porch. Music drifted from inside, along with raucous laughter. Tom slipped in through the side door, moving silently through his own home like an intruder. The sound system pumped out bass-heavy music, masking his footsteps. He could smell cigarette smoke in his house, where he had never allowed it. Voices carried from the living room, a man's deep, arrogant laughter. "You should have seen his face when I showed up at Christmas dinner. Thanks for the wine." Rick's voice. "Clueless bastard." More laughter. Eleanor's voice joined in, slurred with alcohol. He never suspected a thing. Too busy with his precious routine, coffee at 6, news at 6:15. Tom's hands curled into fists. 23 years of marriage reduced to a joke for her brother's amusement. He stepped into the doorway. The scene burned itself into his memory. Eleanor sprawled on the couch, drink in hand, her blouse half unbuttoned. Rick lounged beside her, arm draped possessively around her shoulders. Two men in black suits stood by the windows, trying to look professional despite the beers in their hands. "Get out." Tom's voice cut through the music. The room froze. Eleanor's drink slipped from her fingers, splashing onto the carpet. Rick's smirk faltered. Well, he drawled, but his eyes darted to his bodyguards. "The man of the house returns." 5 seconds, Tom said. "Then I start removing you." The first bodyguard, young and muscled, wearing his suit like a costume, stepped forward. "Listen, buddy," Tom moved. Years of combat training exploded into violence. His first strike crushed the man's larynx. As the bodyguard clutched his throat, Tom's knee drove up into his solar plexus. The man crumpled, gasping. The second guard reached for a weapon. Tom caught his arm, twisting until bones cracked. The guard screamed. Tom slammed his head into the wall, once, twice. The man slumped, unconscious. 15 seconds. 2 threats neutralized. Rick stumbled backward, pulling Eleanor with him. Now, Tom, let's be reasonable, Rick tried, his voice faltering. Tom advanced on them. Like your men were reasonable with my daughter? She shouldn't have been here. Eleanor blurted. Tom backhanded her. The crack echoed through the room. Eleanor sprawled onto the couch, holding her face, staring at him in shock. Don't you dare, Tom growled. Don't you dare blame her. Rick tried to edge toward the door. Tom caught him by the throat, slamming him against the wall. Rick's feet dangled. Please, Rick wheezed. We can talk about this talk. Tom increased the pressure. Like your men talk to Ava with their fists? He drove his knee into Rick's stomach, then let him fall. As Rick gasped for air, Tom's boot connected with his ribs. Once, twice, 3 times. Stop, Eleanor screamed. You'll kill him. Tom's voice was terrifyingly calm. Not yet. He grabbed Rick's hair, yanking his head up. Your men hurt my little girl. Think I'll return the favor. What followed was methodical, brutal, and precisely calculated. Tom knew exactly how much damage the human body could take. He kept Rick conscious, made him feel every blow. When he finished, Rick lay curled on the floor, sobbing, blood dripping from his nose and pooling on the carpet, a stain Tom had installed last summer. Tom turned to Eleanor. She pressed herself against the couch, trembling. Tommy, please, she whimpered. I can explain. Don't call me that. He looked at her like she was a stranger. Get your things. Get out. If you're still here in 10 minutes, you'll wish you weren't. Eleanor staggered to her feet. Where am I supposed to go? Ask your brother. Tom's laugh held no humor. Once he can talk again, he turned to the bodyguards, one unconscious, the other still clutching his throat. Take your boss and get out. If I see any of you again, they won't find your bodies. The conscious guard dragged himself to his feet and helped his partner up. Together, they lifted Rick, who moaned in pain. This isn't over, Rick mumbled through bloody lips. You're right, Tom smiled, and both guards took an involuntary step back. It's just beginning. He watched them load Rick into one of the SUVs. Eleanor stumbled after them, mascara streaking her cheeks. She looked back once, but Tom had already turned away. Inside, he surveyed the damage. Broken glass, blood on his carpet, cigarette burns on his coffee table. His home, the one he had built, defiled by their presence. His phone buzzed. A text from Mac. Found something. Meet me tonight. Tom nodded to himself. Eleanor and Rick thought this was over. They thought he'd had his revenge, spent his rage. They were wrong. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice. For Ava. For the years they laughed behind his back. For every holiday dinner where Rick had sat at his table, planning to destroy his family. Tom walked to his bedroom, their bedroom. The bed where she betrayed him still bore the evidence of their affair. He stripped the sheets methodically, carried them to the backyard, and set them on fire. Then he made a series of calls, to his bank, to his lawyer, to Detective Ramirez. Eleanor thought she knew him, thought he was predictable, boring, safe. She was about to learn how wrong she was. They all were. Tom sat in his chair, staring at the blank television screen. The house felt hollow, tainted. Blood still stained his knuckles, Rick's blood. His phone buzzed again. Mac. Construction site. 1 hour. Tom closed his eyes, memories flooding back to Afghanistan, 2003. The ambush that nearly killed them both. Mac pulling him to safety as bullets tore through the air. The debt between them, written in blood and gunfire. He hadn't always been this man, capable of calculated violence, of cold revenge. Once, he'd been a small-town kid with simple dreams. Military service had changed him, taught him about duty, loyalty, and the harsh realities of a world where violence solved problems that words couldn't touch. The day he'd met Eleanor replayed in his mind. She'd been a waitress at the local diner, bright smiles, endless chatter. He'd been freshly discharged, still adjusting to civilian life. She'd seemed like an anchor, something real to hold on to while his mind still echoed with gunfire and screams. Their courtship had been swift, passionate. She talked about her dreams, a big house, fancy cars, the kind of life her brother Rick enjoyed. Tom had promised to give her everything he could, not riches, but stability, security, a home. For years, it had seemed enough. They'd had Ava, bought this house, built a life. Tom had worked his way up from laborer to foreman, took pride in honest work. Eleanor had seemed happy, or at least, he thought she was. Now, he wondered how long the lies had been going on. How long had she looked at his calloused hands and worn work boots with contempt? How long had she been plotting with Rick, laughing at the faithful husband who trusted her? Tom's hands clenched at the thought of his brother-in-law, the golden boy of the family with his designer suits and smooth talk. Tom had never trusted him, had seen the predator beneath the polished exterior. But for Eleanor's sake, he'd welcomed Rick into his home, broken bread with him, endured his subtle jabs and condescending smiles. Tom's phone rang. Detective Ramirez. Walker, he answered. Got some information on your brother-in-law, Ramirez said without preamble. You're not going to like it. Tell me, those weren't just bodyguards at your house. They're enforcers. Rick's been running a protection racket, squeezing local businesses. He's got cops on the payroll, judges in his pocket. Tom absorbed this. That explains the muscle. There's more, Ramirez continued. Your wife's been making withdrawals. Big ones. Moving money into offshore accounts. How long? Tom asked. 6 months at least. Walker, Ramirez hesitated. They were planning to clean you out. Divorce papers are already drawn up. They were going to take everything. Leave you with nothing but debt. Tom's laugh was harsh. Appreciate the intel, detective. Walker, Ramirez's voice sharpened. Don't do anything stupid. Rick's connected. He's dangerous. So am I, Tom replied flatly, then ended the call. He stood, moving through the house with purpose. In the bedroom, he opened the closet and pushed aside hanging clothes. The safe was hidden behind a false panel, his private space, one secret Eleanor had never discovered. Inside lay remnants of his military life, documents, medals, a book of contacts from his service days. Men who owed him favors. Men who knew how to handle problems quietly. The construction site was dark when Tom arrived. Mac's truck was parked in the shadows, away from the streetlights. Tom approached cautiously, scanning for surveillance. Old habits died hard. Mac stood by a stack of steel beams, his broad frame silhouetted against the night sky. 20 years of civilian life hadn't softened him. He still moved like a soldier, alert and ready. You look like hell, Mac said as Tom approached. You should see the other guy, Tom replied. Mac nodded toward his truck. Got something to show you. Inside the truck's cab, Mac pulled out a laptop. Been doing some digging on Rick's operations. The man's got his fingers in everything. Real estate, fraud, protection rackets, money laundering. But here's the interesting part. He turned the screen toward Tom. Bank statements, property records, shell companies. Your wife's name keeps popping up. She's been working with Rick for years, helping him move money around. She's not just his lover. She's his partner. Tom studied the documents, his expression hardening. She played me for a fool. There's more, Mac continued. Rick's got problems. He borrowed big from some dangerous people. Word is, he's desperate for cash. That's probably why they accelerated their timeline with you. Timeline. Mac pulled up more documents. They've been planning this for months. The divorce, the asset transfers, everything. They were going to bleed you dry, saddle you with Rick's debts. You'd have lost everything, house, savings, maybe even ended up in jail for their financial schemes. Tom absorbed this in silence. The betrayal went deeper than he'd imagined. Not just an affair, but a calculated plot to destroy him. What about Ava? He asked finally. She wasn't supposed to be home today, Mac replied. They got sloppy. Got caught. Rick's guys panicked. Tom's jaw clenched. They hurt my little girl, and they'll pay for that. Mac assured him, but you need to be smart about this. Rick's got connections. You go after him head on, you'll end up dead or in prison. I'm not going to kill him, Tom said quietly. Death's too quick, too clean. I want them to suffer. I want them to lose everything, just like they planned for me. Mac studied his old friend's face. You got a plan? Tom stood. I need you to keep digging. Bank records, business dealings, everything. I want to know every skeleton in their closet. What about Eleanor? Tom's expression turned cold. She made her choice. Now she lives with it. He left Mac and drove home, his mind working through possibilities. The house felt different now, more like a crime scene than a home. He walked through each room, noting the small signs he'd missed. The extra phone she'd hidden in her jewelry box. The financial documents tucked behind the filing cabinet. The business cards from offshore banks. All the pieces of their betrayal hidden in plain sight. In Ava's room, he paused. Photos covered the walls. Family vacations, birthdays, graduations. Eleanor smiling, playing the devoted mother, while plotting to destroy their lives. His phone buzzed. A text from Ava. When can you pick me up? Tom texted back. Tomorrow morning. Get some rest. Another text came in. This one from Eleanor. We need to talk. Tom deleted it without responding. There was nothing left to say. He spent the night in his chair, cleaning his gun, making lists, planning. Eleanor and Rick thought they knew him. The predictable, reliable Thomas Walker, the man who played by the rules. They had no idea what he was capable of. As dawn broke, Tom made coffee, properly this time. No burning. He'd lived through betrayal before, in war. Seen what it did to men. But this was different. This wasn't combat. This was family. They brought war to his home, threatened his child. Now they would learn what that meant. The sun rose over his broken home, marking the end of one life and the beginning of another. Thomas Walker, husband, father, builder of homes, was gone. In his place stood a warrior awakened from long slumber, a man with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. The war had begun. The nurse at the station gave him a nod. They'd grown used to his presence over the past day. Through the door's window, he could see Ava lying in bed, her bruised face turned toward the TV mounted on the wall. Hey, baby girl, he said softly, entering the room. Ava's eyes lit up despite her injuries. Dad. Her voice was stronger than before, but pain still edged her words. Tom settled into the chair beside her bed, taking her hand in his. The bruises on her face had darkened, marking the passage of time since Rick's men had attacked her. His jaw tightened at the sight. The doctor says I can go home tomorrow, Ava said. Not home, Tom replied. I've arranged for you to stay with Sarah for a while. But Dad, no arguments, his voice was gentle but firm. Home isn't safe right now. I need to handle something. Ava's fingers tightened around his. Mom called me. Tom's expression hardened. What did she say? She tried to explain, said it wasn't what I thought, that Uncle Rick. Ava's voice cracked. She said I shouldn't have been there, that it was my fault for coming home early. Tom stood abruptly, pacing to control his rage. Nothing about this is your fault. Nothing. I should have known something was wrong, Ava continued. The way they'd whisper when you weren't around. How Uncle Rick started showing up more often when you were at work. She wiped at her eyes. Mom's been meeting with lawyers. I saw the paperwork in her car last week. I should have told you. You trusted your mother. That's not a crime, Tom said, returning to her bedside. Tell me everything you remember. When did Rick start coming around more? As Ava spoke, Tom's mind cataloged the details, building a timeline of betrayal. Eleanor's real estate meetings that ran late. Rick's casual drops in, always when Tom was at the construction site. The whispered phone calls. The hidden documents. A knock at the door interrupted them. Max stood in the doorway, his hospital administrator badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. Got a minute? Mac asked. Tom squeezed Ava's hand. Get some rest. I'll be back soon. In the hallway, Mac pulled him aside. Those guys you roughed up? They're not just muscle for hire. They're connected. One of them worked security for a casino downtown. Lots of mob ties. The other's got a rap sheet longer than my arm. Assault, extortion, attempted murder. Tom absorbed this. Rick's deeper in than I thought. That's not all. Mac glanced around before continuing. Been asking around about your brother-in-law. He's got protection from someone high up, cops, judges. Someone's making sure he stays clean. Can you get me names? Mac nodded. Working on it. But watch your back. These aren't amateurs you're dealing with. Tom's phone buzzed. Detective Ramirez was requesting a meeting. Keep digging, Tom told Mac. I need everything you can find. Back in Ava's room, he found her dozing. The medication made her sleep more, which was probably for the best. She didn't need to see what was coming. A nurse entered with fresh bandages. Mr. Walker, we need to document her injuries again for the police report. Tom watched as they photographed each bruise, each scrape, evidence, ammunition. His daughter's pain cataloged in megapixels. The detective handling her case called the nurse. They want to interview her tomorrow. No. Tom's voice was final. She's been through enough. They can talk to me. The nurse hesitated. Sir, in cases of domestic violence. This isn't domestic violence. Tom cut her off. This is something else entirely, and I'm handling it. Later, as night settled over the hospital, Tom sat watching Ava sleep. His phone lit up with texts from Eleanor, pleas, explanations, threats. He deleted them all. The woman he'd married, the mother of his child, was gone. In her place was a stranger who'd conspired to destroy him, who'd watched their daughter being attacked and done nothing. Tom's fingers traced the military ID he still carried in his wallet. 20 years ago, he'd been a man, a soldier, who knew how to deal with enemies, who understood that sometimes violence was the only language people respected. He'd buried that man when he came home, built a life of peace. But now, watching his daughter's bruised face, he felt the soldier stirring, rising, ready for war. Eleanor. Rick. They're thugs. They brought violence into his home, hurt his child, tried to take everything. They were about to learn that Thomas Walker hadn't forgotten how to fight. The police station buzzed with activity as Tom made his way to Detective Ramirez's desk. Isabella, Izzy, Ramirez was a sharp-featured woman in her 40s with keen eyes that missed nothing. She motioned for him to sit. You look like hell, she observed. Been a rough few days, Tom replied. Izzy pulled out a thick file. Got some information. You need to see this, Izzy said, spreading photos across her desk. Surveillance shots of Eleanor meeting with various men in expensive suits. That's Julian Torres, Izzy pointed to a handsome man in his 30s. Con artist. Specializes in real estate fraud. Been on our radar for years, but nothing sticks. Your wife's had at least 6 meetings with him in the past month. Tom studied the photos. What's the connection? Torres helps people hide money. Sets up shell companies, offshore accounts. He's good. We've never been able to prove anything. Izzy leaned forward. 3 weeks ago, Eleanor transferred most of your joint savings into an account we can't trace. The paperwork looked legitimate. Your signature was on everything. I never signed anything, Tom muttered. No, Izzy said, her voice low. But someone did. Someone good enough to fool the bank. She pulled out more documents. There's more. Your brother-in-law's businesses, their fronts. Money laundering, probably drugs. Those bodyguards who hurt your daughter? They work for the Castellano family. The name hit Tom like a physical blow. The Castellano family controlled most of the city's organized crime. If Rick was involved with them. You need to back off, Izzy warned. These people don't play games. They'll kill you, and never think twice. Tom's laugh was harsh. They already tried to destroy me. Hurt my daughter. You expect me to walk away? I expect you to be smart, Izzy lowered her voice. Look, I can't officially help you, but unofficially, she slid a USB drive across the desk. This contains everything we have on Torres, Rick, and their operations, account numbers, business records, surveillance reports. Just be careful how you use it. Tom pocketed the drive. I owe you. Yeah, you do, she replied. And then, as he stood to leave, she caught his arm. Whatever you're planning, make sure I don't have to arrest you for it. From the police station, Tom drove to his bank. The manager's face was sympathetic as she reviewed his accounts. I'm sorry, Mr. Walker. The transfers were all properly authorized. Your wife had power of attorney. Show me everything she moved. Where it went. The manager pulled up transaction records. Tom's jaw clenched as he saw their savings disappear, college funds, retirement accounts all gone. Eleanor had been thorough. His phone buzzed. Max had sent coordinates for a meeting. Tom found him in the hospital parking garage, smoking despite the regulations. Got those names you wanted, Max said. Tom didn't wait for details. Where does he live? Max's eyes narrowed. Why? Need to ask him some questions? These guys are professionals, Tom. They'll kill you. They can try. Tom's voice was cold. You going to tell me where he lives or not? Max sighed and handed over a piece of paper. Your funeral. Tom's next stop was his house. Eleanor had cleared out most of her things, but he wasn't interested in clothes or jewelry. He went straight to her home office, the one place she never let him organize. The filing cabinets yielded a treasure trove: bank statements, correspondence, records of meetings. Eleanor had documented everything, probably to protect herself. Now, her own paranoia would help destroy her. A hidden folder contained photos Eleanor with Rick in intimate situations. Blackmail insurance. Tom realized she'd been playing everyone, even her partner in crime. His phone rang. Eleanor's number. He almost deleted it, then reconsidered. Time to start playing his own game. Yes. Tommy, please. Her voice was tearful. We need to talk. This isn't what you think, she pleaded. No. His voice was conversational. So, you didn't steal my money? Didn't watch while Rick's men threw our daughter down the stairs? I didn't know they would hurt her, Eleanor stammered. Rick promised what? Tom cut in. That he'd help you bleed me dry? Set me up for his crimes? Silence hung on the line. Then how did you know about? I know everything, Eleanor. Tom's voice was cold. About Julian Torres, about the Castellano family, about Judge Preston. He let that sink in. You really should have been more careful with your paperwork. Tom, please. Real fear crept into her voice now. You don't understand what you're dealing with. These people know, Tom interrupted. You don't understand. You brought these people into my home. Let them hurt my child. Now, you get to watch while I tear their whole world down. They'll kill you. Better men than them have tried. Tom ended the call. His laptop booted up, and he inserted Izzy's USB drive. Hours of surveillance footage, financial records, police reports, everything he needed to understand his enemy's operations. A separate file contained information on Julian Torres' past victims, people he'd conned, lives he destroyed. Tom began making notes. These people would want revenge. They just needed someone to show them how to get it. As night fell, Tom cleaned his gun, an old habit that helped him think. Eleanor and Rick thought they were dealing with a simple construction foreman, a predictable man who played by the rules. They'd forgotten, or never knew, what he'd been before, the things he'd done in service to his country, the skills he'd learned and never quite forgotten. Tom smiled in the darkness. Time to remind them. The bar was nearly empty when Tom arrived. Max sat in a corner booth, files spread across the table, a half-empty whiskey in front of him. 2 decades of hospital administration hadn't softened his military bearing. Those the hospital reports? Tom asked, sliding into the booth. Mac pushed them over. Caruso got 3 broken ribs, fractured larynx, possible permanent damage to his knee. But Talia wasn't much better, broken jaw, dislocated shoulder, concussion. They'll live. Max studied his friend's face. You starting a war here, Tom? They started it. I'm just finishing it. Mac pulled out more papers. Got the background checks you wanted. Torres has been working with Rick for about 2 years. They run a pretty sophisticated operation, find desperate people, offer them fake investment opportunities, drain them dry. Your wife helped set up the companies, handled the paperwork. How many victims? Tom asked. At least 20 that we know of. Most lost everything. Max slid over a list of names and addresses. What are you planning? Tom pocketed the list. Better if you don't know. These people you're dealing with, they're not amateurs. The CIOs don't play games. Neither do I. Tom's voice was flat. Not anymore. His phone buzzed. Detective Ramirez requesting another meeting. Tom finished his drink and stood. Watch your back, Max warned. Always do. Tom found Izzy in the police station parking lot, leaning against her car. Got something you need to see, she said, handing him a file. Judge Preston's been making regular deposits to an offshore account. Big ones. Way more than his salary could explain. Tom flipped through the bank statements. This is what they used to buy him. Looks like. But that's not all. Izzy pulled out more photos. Preston's got a weakness for young prostitutes. Rick's people have been providing them, along with cocaine. They own him completely. Useful information, Tom said. Izzy grabbed his arm. Don't do anything stupid. These people have protection, money, power. Tom's smile was cold. But they've never dealt with someone like me. Back home, Tom spread everything across his dining room table. Surveillance photos, financial records, witness statements. The pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. Rick's operation was bigger than he'd imagined. Real estate fraud was just the surface. Below that lay layers of money laundering, drug trafficking, prostitution, all protected by corrupt officials and mob connections. Eleanor had known. Had to have known. Yet she'd chosen to ally herself with them to help them destroy him. His phone lit up. A text from an unknown number. Back off while you can. Last warning. Tom saved the number. Useful to know they were worried enough to threaten him. He began making notes, mapping out connections and vulnerabilities. Rick's operation depended on keeping victims quiet, maintaining a legitimate facade. What happened when that facade cracked? Judge Preston was the weak link. Take him down, and the whole protection scheme would crumble. But first, Tom pulled out the list Max had given him. Torres victims. People who'd lost homes, savings, businesses. People with nothing left to lose. Time to give them a chance at revenge. His laptop contained templates for business letters, corporate documents. Within an hour, he'd crafted invitations to a private investment recovery meeting. Anonymous tips about where their money had really gone. Seeds of destruction ready to sprout. Next, he accessed the surveillance footage Izzy had provided. Preston leaving a brothel, Preston meeting with known drug dealers, Preston accepting envelopes of cash from Rick's associates. 3 copies, burned to separate drives. One for the media, one for the bar association, one for Preston himself. Tom's phone buzzed again. Ava. Dad, when can I come home? Not yet, baby. Soon. He kept his voice gentle. How are you? Better. Sarah's parents have been really nice. A pause. Mom keeps calling. Don't answer. I wasn't going to. Ava's voice hardened. I saw what they did to you. What they tried to take from us. None of that matters. You're what matters. Just be careful, okay? I can't lose you too. You won't. Tom's resolve strengthened. Get some rest. I love you. After hanging up, Tom returned to his planning. The pieces were in place. Judge Preston's corruption, Torres victims, the Castellano criminal empire. All connected, all vulnerable. Pull the right threads, and the whole thing would unravel. His phone lit up. Eleanor again. This time, he answered. Last chance, he said before she could speak. Tell me where the money is. I can't. Her voice shook. They'll kill me. Then you better hope they get to you before I do. He ended the call and went back to work. The soldier in him recognized this for what it was, not revenge, but warfare. Intelligence gathering. Target assessment. Strategic strikes. Eleanor. Rick. Torres. The Coso family. They were about to learn what happened when you pushed a trained killer too far, when you hurt his family. Tom smiled in the darkness. The storm was gathering. Time to let it break. Tom sat in his truck outside Julian Torres' office building, watching through binoculars as the con man's victims arrived, one by one. 20 people whose lives Torres had destroyed, each carrying manila folders filled with evidence of his schemes. Tom had contacted them all, provided proof of Torres' fraud, and given them a chance at payback. His phone buzzed, a text from Izzy. Judge Preston just signed the warrants. Move when ready. Tom checked his watch. In 30 minutes, Preston would realize his error, signing search warrants for properties owned by his Castellano family benefactors. By then, it would be too late. Inside the building's lobby, the victims gathered, anger radiating from their faces. A banker who'd lost his pension, a widow whose house had been stolen through forged documents, a contractor forced into bankruptcy, all of them waiting for Torres to arrive. Tom's burner phone rang. Danny Lee's number. The transfers are done, Danny said. Rick's accounts are empty. Everything's moved to the shell companies. What about the offshore accounts? Tom asked. Those two. Eleanor's nest egg is gone. They're both broke. Tom nodded. Send the evidence to the IRS. Anonymous tip? Danny asked. Already done. You sure about this? The Cosos will. Let me worry about them. Tom ended the call. A black Mercedes pulled into the parking lot. Torres, arriving for work. Tom watched through the binoculars as the con man stepped out, straightening his expensive suit. Torres hadn't noticed the gathering crowd yet, too busy checking his reflection in the car window. Tom pulled out his phone and dialed the number he'd gotten from Mac. Mr. Torres? This is David Shunt from the SEC. We've received some concerning reports about your investment practices. I'm in your lobby with some former clients who'd like to discuss the matter. Torres froze, then turned toward the building entrance. Tom could see the moment he recognized the faces waiting for him. The con man's confident mask slipped, replaced by raw fear. Tom smiled and dialed another number, the local news station. This is an anonymous tip. You might want to send a crew to 1835 Market Street. A group of fraud victims are confronting the man who stole their life savings. Torres tried to retreat to his car, but the crowd had already spotted him. They surged forward, waving documents, shouting accusations. A news vent screeched into the parking lot, cameras rolling. Tom's phone lit up, Rick calling. He let it go to voicemail, then checked the message. You bastard, what did you do? The IRS is here. They're seizing everything. I'll kill you for this. Another call. Eleanor. This time, her voice shook with pain and panic. Please, Tom, they're saying it was all fraud, that Rick was laundering money. They're freezing my accounts. I need help. Tom deleted the message without responding. Through the binoculars, he watched Torres trying to push through the crowd. His designer suit now wrinkled and torn. Camera crews captured everything as the victims shared their stories. Decades of fraud exposed in the harsh light of day. Police cars arrived, lights flashing. Tom recognized Izzy stepping out of an unmarked vehicle, warrant in hand. She timed it perfectly. Torres, caught on camera, surrounded by his victims, as federal agents moved in to arrest him. Tom's burner phone buzzed again. A text from Danny. Files sent to the SEC. T's entire operation exposed. Rick's connection to the fraud documented. They'll both go down for this. The plan was working perfectly. Torres would talk to save himself, implicating Rick in the fraud. Rick would panic, probably try to run. The Coso family would realize he'd become a liability. Tom started his truck and pulled away, leaving chaos in his wake. One target down, 2 to go. His next stop was the construction site, where he'd arranged to meet Baglia, the bodyguard who'd helped throw Ava down the stairs. The man had agreed to talk, thinking Tom wanted to negotiate peace. Tom parked behind the half-finished building, checking his recording equipment. Everything Baglia said would be captured, documented, preserved as evidence against Rick and his criminal associates. The bodyguard arrived right on time, alone, as instructed. His face still showed bruises from their last encounter. Make this quick, Baglia growled. I'm not supposed to be here. Tom stepped from the shadows. Tell me about Rick's operation, the money laundering, the protection rackets, all of it. You're crazy. I'm not saying anything. Tom pulled out his phone and played a recording Ava discussing drug shipments, naming names, detailing criminal operations. The bodyguard's face went pale. How did you? Your partner, Caruso, talks in his sleep. Hospital rooms have surprisingly thin walls. Tom's voice hardened. Start talking, or this goes to the feds and the Coso family. Baglia talked for an hour. He detailed Rick's crimes, his connections to organized crime, the complex web of corruption he built. Tom recorded everything. When Baglia finished, Tom handed him an envelope, plane ticket to Miami, cash for a fresh start. Disappear, or the recording goes public. The bodyguard grabbed the envelope with trembling hands and fled. Tom sent copies of the recording to multiple secure locations, insurance in case anything happened to him. His phone buzzed again. Max had sent coordinates. Time for the next phase. Rick would be panicking now, watching his empire crumble. Eleanor would be desperate. Her stolen money vanished into untraceable accounts. Both of them running scared, making mistakes. Tom smiled in the darkness. The trap was sprung. Now came the fun part, watching them destroy themselves trying to escape it. The warehouse district was deserted at this hour, silent except for the distant rumble of freight trains. Tom parked his truck behind an abandoned loading dock and checked his weapons. The Glock was clean, loaded. The backup piece strapped to his ankle, not that he planned to need them. His phone lit up with texts. Danny, Rick just tried accessing the accounts. They're all empty. He's freaking out. Mac, COSO enforcers spotted at Rick's office. They don't look happy. Izzy, Preston singing like a bird. Naming names, dates, everything. The whole operation's exposed. Tom deleted the messages and stepped out into the night. The warehouse ahead had been Rick's primary money laundering front, wholesale electronics business that never seemed to ship any actual products. Now, it would become the stage for Rick's downfall. The security cameras were already disabled, thanks to Danny's hacking skills. Tom moved through the shadows, counting heartbeats. Right on schedule, a black SUV pulled up to the loading dock. Rick stumbled out, clutching a briefcase. His expensive suit was rumpled, his face pale with fear. Two COSO soldiers flanked him, their expressions grim. The money's here, Rick's voice cracked. All of it. Just let me explain. The larger soldier grabbed the briefcase, checked inside. It's empty. What? No, that's impossible. Rick's eyes darted wildly. It was just here. Someone must have. You lost 10 million of the family's money, the second soldier growled. Mr. Castellano wants answers. Tom stepped into view, enjoying Rick's look of terror. Looking for this? He held up a USB drive, bank records, transfer histories, proof of where all that money really went. Rick lunged forward, but the soldiers held him back. No, this is your fault. No, Rick, this is your fault. You got greedy. Sloppy. Tom's voice was conversational. Did you really think you could steal from the mob and get away with it? I didn't steal anything. It was business, really. Tom turned to the soldiers. Check his offshore accounts. The ones he thought were secret. He's been skimming for years, playing both sides. The larger soldier's phone buzzed. He checked it, then nodded to his partner. Boss says it's true. We found the accounts. Rick's face went ghost white. No, wait. I can explain. No, the soldier interrupted. The boss doesn't want explanations. He wants his money. I'll get it back. I just need time. Time's up, Rick. Tom's smile was cold. The feds are closing in. The judge is talking. Your whole operation's exposed. The COSO family can't risk keeping you alive. Please. Rick turned to the soldiers. I've got dirt on everyone, names, dates, recordings. Is that supposed to make us trust you more? The soldier's gun appeared. Tom stepped back into the shadows. Goodbye, Rick. Say hello to your friends in hell. Rick's screams echoed through the warehouse. 2 shots, muffled by suppressors. Then silence. Tom waited until the SUV pulled away, then made an anonymous call to the police. They'd find Rick's body and assume it was a mob hit. Case closed. His phone buzzed again. Eleanor calling. This time, he answered. It's over, he said before she could speak. Rick's dead. Torres is in custody. The money's gone. Tom, please? Her voice shook with tears. I never meant for any of this. Save your lies. I'm done listening. What am I supposed to do? I have nothing left. You've got exactly what you deserve. Tom's voice was ice. You chose this path. Now walk it alone. He ended the call and drove to the motel where Eleanor was hiding. She opened the door at his knock, her designer clothes replaced by cheap department store wear, her makeup smeared from crying. Come to gloat, she spat. Come to deliver your divorce papers? In this, he handed her an envelope containing proof of her involvement in Rick's crimes. Try anything, and this goes to the feds. You'll join your brother in hell. You can't prove anything. Want to bet? Tom's smile was terrible. I've got recordings, bank records, witness statements, everything. Eleanor's shoulders slumped. What do you want? Sign the papers. Disappear. Never contact me or Ava again. And if I don't, then I destroy you completely. Her voice quivered with fear. Your choice. She signed. Tom left her there, sobbing in her cheap motel room, her dreams of wealth and power shattered. His phone buzzed. Mac calling with updates. The investigation was proceeding exactly as planned. Rick's death would be ruled a mob hit. Torres was cooperating, implicating everyone. The Cosos were turning on each other, their empire crumbling. Tom drove home, satisfaction warming his chest. They tried to destroy him, hurt his daughter, steal everything he built. Instead, he'd annihilated them completely. The sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as Tom made coffee, properly this time, no burning. The morning papers screamed, major crime ring exposed. Below that, prominent businessman found dead in warehouse. His phone buzzed. Mac, it's all over the news. Rick's murder. Torres arrest. The whole operation exposed. You sure about this? It's done. Tom sipped his coffee. The Cosos think Rick stole their money. The feds think it was a mob hit. Case closed. And Eleanor? Broke, alone, running scared. She signed the papers this morning. Good. Mac, how's Ava? Okay, getting there. She's coming home today. After hanging up, Tom reviewed the morning's reports. Danny had erased all traces of their cyber operations. Izzy had sealed the case files, marking Rick's murder as solved. Organized crime, the Cosos, were too busy dealing with federal investigations to worry about revenge. His doorbell rang. Ava, returning from Sarah's house. She looked better, her bruises fading. Her smile was genuine. Hey, Dad. Tom hugged her gently. Welcome home, baby girl. I saw the news. She studied his face. Did you? Better if you don't ask questions you don't want answered. Ava nodded. Mom called me. What did she say? Begged me to help her. Said she was sorry, that she had nowhere to go. Ava's voice hardened. I told her she should have thought about that before betraying us. Pride swelled in Tom's chest. His daughter was strong, like him, unforgiving of betrayal. His phone buzzed. Detective Ramirez. Just wanted you to know, Izzy said. Torres rolled on everyone. Judge Preston's going away for decades. The whole corruption ring is exposed. Appreciate the update. Tom's voice softened. It's over. Let it go now. He ended the call and joined Ava in the kitchen. She was making breakfast, humming softly. What now? She asked. Now we rebuild. Together. Later, alone in his study, Tom reviewed the final pieces of his revenge. The offshore accounts where he'd hidden Rick's stolen millions, insurance against future threats. The files documenting Eleanor's crimes, ready to destroy her if she ever returned. The network of allies he'd built, Mac, Danny, Izzy, loyal friends who understood the importance of justice. His phone buzzed one last time. An unknown number. He answered cautiously. Mr. Walker. A cultured voice. Probably Castellano himself. I want to thank you for exposing Rick's theft. The family appreciates your discretion. Just wanted justice. Indeed. Tom smiled. Consider yourself under our protection. No one will trouble you or your daughter again. Tom smiled. Appreciate that. He ended the call and deleted the number. Everything had worked perfectly. His enemies destroyed, his daughter safe, his future secure. The soldier in him recognized a complete victory. The doorbell rang. Mac, Danny, and Izzy arriving for dinner. His new family, forged in battle, tempered by loyalty. Tom joined them, accepting their congratulations, their concern, their friendship. He was no longer the naive man who trusted too easily. He'd become something harder, colder, more dangerous. But watching Ava laugh with their friends, seeing her heal from the betrayal, he knew it had been worth it. He protected what mattered, destroyed those who threatened his family. The war was over. He'd won. And God help anyone who ever tried to hurt them. 5 years later, the construction company's new headquarters stood proud against the city skyline. Walker and Associates Construction displayed in bold letters across the glass facade. Inside his top-floor office, Thomas Walker reviewed the quarterly reports with the same intensity he once used to plan military operations. At 50, his hair had more gray than dark now, but his blue eyes retained their piercing focus, and his body remained combat-ready through discipline and training. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Walker, your daughter's here. Send her in." Ava strode into the office, now 26 and carrying herself with confident grace. Her law degree hung on Tom's office wall, paid for with Rick's stolen millions, a fact that always made him smile. She'd specialized in prosecuting financial crimes, turning their family's tragedy into a weapon against others like Julian Torres. "Ready for lunch, Dad?" Tom closed his laptop. "Always. How's the Martinez case going?" Another wannabe Julian Torres. Ava's smile was sharp. He thought he could run a real estate scam targeting elderly veterans. "Bad choice. Judge granted all our motions this morning. He's looking at 20 years minimum." They took the elevator to the parking garage, where Tom's new truck waited. Still practical, but now top of the line. Some habits died hard. "Heard from Ma this morning," Tom said as they drove. "The hospital's naming him chief of operations." "Good. He deserves it." Ava checked her phone. "Izzy's making deputy chief next month." Danny's cybersecurity firm just landed another government contract. Their friends had prospered in the years since Eleanor and Rick's downfall. Loyalty had learned, paid better dividends than betrayal. The restaurant was upscale but discreet, one of their regular spots. The maitre d' led them to their usual corner table, positioned to watch all entrances. Another habit that hadn't faded. "Sarah's getting married next month," Ava mentioned as they studied the menus. "Asked me to be maid of honor." Tom nodded. Sarah had been Ava's rock during the darkest days, offering shelter and support. Her family had become extended family. "Family?" Ava asked quietly. Tom's hand tightened on his water glass. "What about Mom?" "Last week, an email from a new account." Ava's voice was cold. "Wanted to explain her side now that she's found peace or whatever. I blocked her." Tom nodded approval. Eleanor had tried several times over the years to reconnect. Each attempt had met with silence. She'd moved to Florida after the divorce, remarried some retiree, and tried to rebuild her life. Tom kept tabs on her through various channels, not out of sentiment, but strategy. Know your enemies, even defeated ones. "Any word on Rick's old associates?" Ava asked. "Cosos are mostly legitimate now. The old man died last year. His sons are running clean businesses." Tom had maintained a carefully neutral relationship with the crime family, mutual respect, mutual distance. Julian's still in prison. Another decade at least. Their meals arrived, steak for Tom, grilled salmon for Ava. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. "Company's expanding again," Tom mentioned. "Bought that development firm in Phoenix, the one Rick tried to steal from that widow." Ava's smile was vindictive. "Nice touch." Tom returned the smile. The company's growth had been strategic, methodical. Each acquisition either strengthened their position or settled old scores. The millions he'd stolen from Rick had been seed money for an empire built on legitimate success. "Detective Rodriguez called yesterday," Ava said. "Remember that cold case they reopened? Rick's murder." Tom's face revealed nothing. "Oh, officially closed now. Ruled a mob hit. Case inactive." Ava met his eyes. No new leads. They'd never discussed Tom's exact role in Rick's death. Ava had never asked. Understanding some questions were better left unvoiced. But she knew her father, knew what he was capable of, knew he'd do anything to protect family. After lunch, they walked to the park where Ava had played as a child. The old playground had been replaced by new equipment, funded by an anonymous donation from Walker and Associates. "James proposed," Ava said suddenly. Tom turned to study his daughter. James Chun was a prosecutor she'd met 2 years ago. Smart, honest, devoted to Ava. Tom had run extensive background checks, of course. The man was clean. "What did you say?" "Said I needed to think." Ava sat on a bench. "Or to trust. You know, after what happened with Mom. James isn't Rick or Eleanor," Tom said carefully. "He's proven himself. I approve of anyone who makes you happy and treats you right." Tom's voice hardened. "And he knows what'll happen if he doesn't." Ava laughed. "Yeah, he's terrified of you in a healthy way." They watched children play for a while, parents hovering nearby. Normal lives. Normal concerns. Tom sometimes wondered what that was like. Izzy mentioned they found Eleanor's ex-boyfriend. Julian's old storage unit, Ava said. Lots of documents that could cause problems for some people. Already handled, Tom replied. Danny scrubbed anything sensitive. Far as anyone knows, it was empty. The company's cybersecurity division, run by Danny with military-grade protocols, had proven invaluable over the years. Information was power, and Tom believed in controlling both his phone and his life. The intercom buzzed. Max was sending their monthly security report, another ritual born of past betrayals. Trust but verify, always. Sarah wants you to walk her down the aisle, Ava mentioned. Her dad's okay with sharing the honor. Tom felt a warmth in his chest. Family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was the people who stood by you in the darkness. They walked back to the office, passing the construction site for their newest project, a women's shelter being built in partnership with Izzy's domestic violence task force. Another way of balancing the scales. Dinner tonight? Ava asked as they reached her car. James wants to talk to you properly. Tom nodded. Tell him to bring that bourbon he's been saving and remind him I'm an excellent shot. Ava kissed his cheek. Love you, Dad. Try not to terrorize my boyfriend too much. No promises. Watching her drive away, Tom reflected on the years since Eleanor's betrayal. He'd rebuilt more than a business empire. He'd forged a new family, stronger than blood, created a legacy built on loyalty instead of lies. Back in his office, Tom reviewed the day's reports, construction projects across 3 states, investment portfolios managed by trusted associates, security briefings from Danny's team. A well-built machine, every part carefully controlled. Max's weekly check-in arrived by encrypted email. Eleanor still in Florida, new husband's health failing. No suspicious activities. Julian denied parole again. No outside contacts. Koso's business dealings clean. Territory stable. Judge Preston dead in prison. Natural causes. Bagley is still in witness protection, keeping his silence. Tom archived the report with 5 years of similar updates. The past never died, but it could be managed, contained, controlled. His phone rang. James Chun requesting a meeting before dinner, probably wanting to do things properly, asking permission. Old-fashioned, but Tom appreciated the gesture. Come by the office, he told James. We'll talk. The young prosecutor arrived promptly. Suit pressed, manner respectful, but not fearful. Good signs. Sir, I want to discuss Ava. Tom gestured to a chair. Let's talk about your intentions. 2 hours later, satisfaction settled in Tom's chest. James had proven himself again. Honest about his feelings, clear about his plans, unafraid to stand his ground when challenged. A worthy partner for Ava. The engagement ring James showed him was elegant, not flashy. The prenup he proposed was fair. His background remained clean, his career solid. Most importantly, he understood what family meant, what loyalty required. I'll never hurt her, James promised. No. Tom agreed pleasantly, you won't. Because you know what happens to people who hurt my family. James met his eyes steadily. Yes, sir. I know exactly what happens. Tom smiled. The young man had done his research, understood the warnings wrapped in Rick's unsolved murder, Eleanor's exile, Julian's downfall. Good. Welcome to the family, son. Now about that bourbon. Later that night, Tom stood at his office window, watching his city sparkle. His empire had been built on the ashes of betrayal, forged in the fires of revenge, but it had become something more, a fortress protecting those he loved, a legacy worthy of his daughter's inheritance. Eleanor and Rick had taught him valuable lessons about trust and betrayal. He'd learned them well, built his new life on their bitter wisdom. Now, he had everything they tried to steal: wealth, power, respect, and things they'd never understood: loyalty, family, honor. His phone buzzed with an alert from Danny's security team. Routine update. Nothing urgent. The world turned, threats emerged, and were contained. Life went on. But now he controlled the game instead of being played. Tom smiled in the darkness, remembering Eleanor's tears, Rick's terror, Julian's pleas for mercy. They thought him weak, predictable, easily destroyed. Their mistake. Nobody would make that mistake again. His new family, Ava, James, Mac, Izzy, Danny, even Sarah, understood what mattered. Loyalty above all. Honor among warriors. Protection for those who earned it. Destruction for those who betrayed it. The past was settled, the future secured, and Thomas Walker stood guard over both, unchanged in the ways that mattered. A protector, a warrior, a man who never forgave betrayal and never forgot his enemies. Let anyone who doubted that truth ask Eleanor, rotting in Florida exile. Ask Julian, growing old in prison. Ask Rick. Oh wait, they couldn't ask Rick anything, not anymore. Tom's smile widened as he turned from the window. Time to head home, prepare for dinner with his growing family. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove that loyalty mattered more than blood. The war was long over. He'd won it completely. Now, he ruled the peace with the same iron will that had brought him victory. Just as it should be. Just as it would always be. After all, some things never changed. And Thomas Walker's dedication to protecting his family and punishing those who threatened it would never change at all. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to this channel, click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.